Hey there everyone, Paul from OPEX Fitness Bristol here, and in today's video we talk to you about how you can be fitter and stronger during lockdown. In today's coaching conversation, our coaches will reveal their top tips to keep you healthy, fit and strong during isolation and beyond. Remember, if you like this video, please slap a like on it, click the subscribe button and check out all the links in the description box below. Welcome everyone, we're back again for another coaches roundtable. Where all the coaches from OPEX Fitness Bristol get together and answer your questions regarding fitness issues, nutrition issues over this during this lockdown period. The focus of today's chat is based on exercise and exercise during lockdown. We had a question from one of our clients, how much exercise should I be doing during lockdown? Myself and the coaches will go through that today with you, so you get a better idea as to how much exercise you should be doing, the intensity of that exercise, and what factors you should be thinking about when choosing the types of exercise during this time at home during lockdown. All right. So we're going to start off with kind of like with anything. Whenever we're choosing what to do when it comes to that exercise, there's a few other things that we need to kind of get in place that we talked about in the last video beforehand, and those include getting your sleep correct, setting up a kind of routine for the day, getting your nutrition on point, and then all the exercise kind of will come along, will move along progressively from that. The exercise is that kind of icing on the top of that cake. So first thing we want to really talk about is what should your goals be for your exercise during lockdown, and how can we make this time as productive as possible. So start with you, Milo. Let's talk about goals and how you should choose a goal when it comes to exercise during lockdown.
Well, to be honest, I don't think they should change too much. I think for the majority of us, our goals are just to be fit and healthy and live a long life, and look good. And I think it's about kind of being realistic in this situation and controlling what you can control. So it's just think about this time as a time to be consistent. Be consistent with your exercise, be consistent with your nutrition, and just be consistent with life, because this is going to have a layover effect of when we go back to our new normal. So I think that's quite simply there with the goals. It's about being realistic and being consistent with it.
Yeah, so very similar to how you would set out a goal, whether you're in lockdown or not. It is still using those principles that kind of guide realistic goals and goals that are specific to you, rather than, hey, I want to get ripped and lean during lockdown, or I want to pack on 7 pounds of muscle during lockdown. For most people, those kind of goals are irrelevant at the moment. And with the focus being on people's health, I think you're right there, is that anything you do should supplement your health, so you can stay healthy during this phase and then come out at the end of this as healthy and fit as possible. Andy, any kind of comments on that?
No, I think the biggest point that both you, Milo, have already touched on very well is, those goals and, being realistic about those goals. So yeah, if you're somebody who before lockdown was on the road to try and bench press 200 kilos or something, well, unless you got 200 kilos lying around your house, it's probably not a realistic goal to have during lockdown. So I think the biggest thing is exactly what you guys have said, is focusing on, maintaining your health, being healthy, feeling good, those are the most important things. And those are goals that are very, very achievable during this time. So, yeah.
Mads, anything to add on that?
No, I sort of just agree with what you guys have already said, that it does just need to be focused around your health rather than sort of focusing on getting shredded, when really you need to just look after your mental health, get into a different location, and then just keep moving, essentially.
I think sorry, Mads, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Sorry, Andy.
I was just going to say, I think the way I just thought about it now, the way to put it is, it's time for perhaps it's time for performance goals to take a backseat, right?
Yep.
During this time, performance goals. So labeling things performance goals, like, you know, like Maddie said, you know, performance goals, time to take a backseat and focusing on that health and focusing on all those great habits that we talk about. That will be the key to coming through this thing in a good state, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to put that into kind of a perspective, I think for me, you know, my particular goals during this time are going to differ from everyone else's. But for me personally, it's now time to work on those things that I've been putting off all that time, when I've been kind of suckered into doing some more weightlifting, or instead of working on my mobility, or instead of getting my meal prep done, or instead of working on those movement issues that we all know each one of us has. So implementing those kind of things into your daily routine, I would class as exercise, as, you know, that structured element for your day, whether it is 10 minutes of some kind of movement flow, or 10 minutes of breathing practice, whatever it is, that to me is classed as exercise, and that will then push on to that greater goal to come out of this in a position to then kick on. Mm-hmm. We're not going to kick on in this period because we haven't got access to gyms or coaches, but we can, as you said, maintain to then move forward once we come out of lockdown.
Yeah.
Awesome, cool. One of the questions we did have was about the intensity of exercise, and now I'm sure we've all seen, if we have been out and about, everyone's walking, everyone's decided to take up running or cycling, and for most of us that is kind of a good thing. But like with most things, if we're given that 1 hour a day prison exercise, people tend to go ham on that 1 hour a day and kill themselves, especially when it comes to running. So let's talk a little bit about intensity of exercise, and then we can talk about kind of choice of exercise after that. But exercise intensity, Andy, do you want to talk us through a little bit your thoughts around the kind of intensities?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a real distinction, of course, between, you know, when it comes to training for health and for longevity and feeling good, there's a really big distinction between that and training for performance, and intensity kind of is one of the things that splits those two apart. So, you know, I think that one of the worst things people can do right now is exactly what you said, Paul, is think, okay, I'm going to get really great at running, so I'm going to go run every day for now. And running is an intense exercise. It's really tough on the body. And
it's a skill that we need to learn.
And it's a skill. It's exactly right. It's a skill. And if you just decide to go, I'm going to get great at running and run 6 or 7 days a week, you are going to set yourself up for injury. But it's, you know, even the same thing for press ups. I mean, someone says, okay, my goal is to be able to do 100 press ups in a row, so I'm going to do press ups every single day, 7 days in a row, you know, indefinitely. Well, you're setting yourself up for some overuse injuries. So I think, as always, as we always talk about, understanding where you really are at and training, you know, with an appropriate intensity and an appropriate volume for where you are, is the place to start. And now is the time to move more and move well, but not necessarily move with a tremendous amount of intensity, in my opinion. I mean, we don't need intensity right now to maintain our health and our fitness. Intensity is reserved for somewhere else, I think.
I think that as we found out as kind of exercises ourselves, intensity is relative. It's relative to the person. Yeah. But also it can have a detrimental effect if we're going too intense too many times. A detrimental effect on the adaptations to the fitness stimulus that we're actually putting in front of ourselves, and can cause further issues down the line. And when we're talking about health over this period and staying healthy and staying virus free, you know, smashing yourself with burpees every day probably isn't the best way of ensuring that.
Totally agree.
So yeah, use intensity as, you know, relative to you, but kind of sprinkle it on when you need it rather than every day.
Yeah.
Mads, any more comments on that with your training maybe?
Kind of similar to what Andy's sort of said already, that those people that are now jumping into maybe running or doing something more than they normally would, compared to out of lockdown, is then causing other issues for them. Like quite a few people I've spoken to who have started running purely based on the fact they don't have access to any equipment. They're now getting knee sort of like niggles and pain, and then they're getting back pain, and then their shins are hurting. So I think because people do want to get outside and they want to do that exercise in that time as well, they're then causing themselves issues that are going to essentially probably stop them exercising for a bit, and then probably put a bit more strain on their mental health and how they're feeling in general. So rather than sticking to the sort of same amount of days they've trained before, they're just trying to go all out and do everything. So I think it is a main thing of just focus on how many days you've done before as well, and maybe base what you're going to do now around that.
Yeah, cool. Milo?
Yeah, I think you've got to kind of look at what is isolation, and isolation is an additional stressor to your body. Whether you feel it or not, there's a change in environment, and that might be placing like an extra 25% stress on your body. So if you've got that additional stress on your body, is it a good idea now to change your training to increase the intensity? So if you think if your exercise was putting a certain amount of stress on you, you've got this extra 25% from lockdown, and now you've added another 20% on top of that. At some point, think of it as a bucket. That stress is going to flow over. So I think, look at it that way. It's about managing stress levels, and upping the intensity of exercise too much can have a detrimental effect. So, with that in mind, I guess what is good is easy aerobic work. So walking, getting out, spending that hour walking a day, making that the base of your fitness with some body weight resistance training. And, when I say resistance training, many of us might think of weights, but a lot of us don't have weights at home. But what we do have is our body. And, we can do plenty of, lunging activities, squatting activities, core activities, pushing and pulling. And I think that's going to be far more beneficial to us in the long term.
I think just to add on to that a little bit, in keeping with the idea of health, I did a little while ago hear James Fitzgerald. He made a really good point. He said he listed the reasons, or he listed the factors in suppressing your own immune system, right, and making yourself more unhealthy. And in that list was change the intensity of your exercise, change your routine, change your diet. And he listed all of these factors that we're talking about right now. So to Milo's point, if you want to put yourself in a worse position, then yes, ramp up the intensity, because that change, we want to keep things as similar as we can. Like Maddie said, as close to what is normal for us and close to what you have been doing. We want to keep it as close to that as possible right now. So to go and change and up the intensity in exercise is kind of a recipe for disaster. You want to keep things as similar as possible. As best you can, keep your routine. As best you can, keep the intensity at most where it has been. Don't start upping it. Don't start doing things that are going to put additional strain on your body. Keep things the same. Keep things the same. And that will keep you in a healthier state than changing everything with this additional stress we have, as Milo said, of being in isolation.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think from you guys working with your clients, either in lockdown or out of lockdown, that still remains the same. That intensity is almost has to be earned. Yeah. If your movement patterns, if your base level of aerobic fitness or absolute strength is low, then you can't express intensity anyway. You can't express power. So, going out and doing 10 hill sprints, having not done any hill sprints, it's as you said, it's a recipe for disaster. All right, moving on then very quickly. In terms of choice of movements and exercises, obviously, you guys are helping your clients through their programs every day. And all that information is based off their training history and their injuries and things like that. Milo, do you want to talk us around that kind of training history and training age and how it kind of plays into this exercise during lockdown?
Yeah, I think, if you're kind of new to fitness and, fitness and doing some exercises is, like something you're not very used to doing. Like if you're suddenly going to jump in and do 5 sessions a week, that's probably too much. You've got to look at where you are right now, and you want to build it up gradually over a period of months. So if you're not used to doing exercise, start with 1 session a week. The next week, then maybe go to 2 sessions, or make that first session a little bit longer. I mean, if you've been training for a little bit longer, and maybe you've been consistent to 3 to 5 times a week for maybe 10 years or somewhere in the middle of that, yes, you're going to be able to take a little bit more. But again, on my previous point, it's a lot more stressful. So are you going to be wanting to do what you're currently doing? Probably not. I think here's where the variety is important, and we make sure that we are getting, all the different types of movements from squatting, bending, pushing, single leg work and core work into your program, rather than just focusing on maybe five days of doing push-ups a week, because that's a lot.
Yeah, and you wouldn't normally do that in your gym anyway, so why would you be doing that at home?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that sounds like a simple point, but as we've all seen online, everything's about Zoom workouts and getting your community together and smashing a workout, and that's cool, but those movements have to be chosen well, and for the people you're working with. And I think being able to have that slight individual slide for most people, it gives them more bang for their buck when they actually do train at home. Mads, you did mention something before we came on the call about your training over the last couple of weeks, and about you training quite a lot and then kind of feeling that was quite tough. Do you want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, to start with, when we first initially went into lockdown, I spoke with my coach sort of just about doing something every day and training every day. And I think in the end, I did something every day for probably 14 days. And just by the end of it, I felt broken. And with the limited equipment I do have as well, have access to, I haven't felt that sore in years. So we then went back and sort of looked at it again, and then I'm still doing something every day, but it'll sort of be maybe 3 days of some aerobic or resistance training, and then just a day with a long walk, just to get the body moving, get some blood flow, and still doing something. So I'm not just in my 1-bedroom flat for the entire day. So I'm still getting out, but that's made a huge difference in the fact that there's some variance in there, and there's easier days and there's slightly harder days. But I found that's made a huge difference, and I feel a lot better for it.
Yeah, and we've been blessed with pretty good weather as well, so that makes that kind of going out for that walk. Me personally, I walk with my partner and my baby almost every day, and my pug, and that's a time, like that's family time almost, out in nice weather or whatever. So that's not structured exercise, as you'd call it, but to me that's part of my routine, that's part of my day, and it's not going to lead to any overuse issues. So moving on then to that kind of those overuse issues and potential injuries and problems and access to equipment. Andy, do you want to kind of talk to us a little bit about that and how you would tackle those issues?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really important is to make sure, it'd be very easy to get sucked in this situation. Even if you're only training 3 or 4 days a week, it's very easy to get sucked in because you have limited equipment of doing the same exercise all the time. And I think as best as is possible, we have to, now more than ever, we need to make sure we have some variance in our movements, because it will be so easy to just smash the same 4 or 5 exercises week in and week out, and before you know it, you've been doing press-ups every day and you've got a rotator cuff issue. And that's something that's going to stick with you for months, by the way. That's not something that's just going to resolve itself. So I think that is very important. You know, managing the intensity and managing the movements that you do, having lots of variance in them is a big thing right now. Instead of just 4 days a week, air squats, lunges, and press-ups. You know, and you know, if you speaking to your coach, like one of us, or you know, it's something that we can come out with if people aren't sure. We have come out with various different kind of daily workouts and things like that people can do, is, you know, get creative, and even just changing a movement a little bit, you know, will make a difference. It does have some variance. It will keep you from getting into that pattern of overuse.
Milo, anything more on that?
No, to be honest, I think that, you know, that fairly succinctly covers that point there. So.
Yeah, I think the aim is to not break yourself.
Yeah.
So making sure that you have got that variation. Okay, we've got minimal equipment, but just, you know, what you can do with the kettlebell, and if you've just got that little bit of guidance, you know, you can get a lot out of your training over the next month, well, at least another 3 weeks anyway. So just to kind of recap and finish off then, you know, in terms of activity, in terms of exercise, we want to make sure that we're doing enough exercise, so we're not, you know, so our body composition isn't changing. That also ties it back into nutrition, or isn't changing for the worse, so, you know, putting on body fat potentially. We kind of want to find that middle point where everything's kind of just right. So, you know, and you'll find that over time. But then also try not to overdo it too much, so we have too little variation and potential overuse issues, which will then further on down the line cause injury, and you having to go to a physio for a rotator cuff issue because you've done so many press-ups or burpees or whatever. If you're going to follow generic programs, you know, try and find someone you trust, someone who knows what they're doing, because, you know, soon over time your willingness to do those Zoom classes is going to go through the floor, because, you know, all I've got today is lunges and burpees again. So yeah, try, you know, other takeaways: get outside, vitamin D, and going for that kind of long walk if you can. That should be the base of your exercise choice. If you can move to three to 6 days a week, do your exercise, 20 to 40 minute sessions. That, you know, they can be short, sharp ones, they can be slightly longer ones. And as Andy's mentioned, talk about, look at the variety of movements. If you've got a coach that you trust, they should be providing you with the variety of those movements based off of you, your training age, your biology, and your injuries. And just to finish off, just let recovery and enjoyment guide the quantity and intensity of the exercise you're doing. So as we would do whether you're in the gym or not, you know, your recovery plays such a part in the adaptation to the exercise stimulus. So make sure you're recovered enough to then train again the next day or in a couple of days' time, and don't worry about having a day off. And enjoy it. Enjoy this time at home. Enjoy this time to really work on those things that you've been wanting to work on for a long time. And you'll come out of this in a much better position than you did when you came in. Any other points to add, guys?
Just one thing I'll say. I kind of finished off the last one trying to make kind of a poignant statement, and I guess
do it again, Andy. Do it again.
I do the same thing here. I think when, you know, everything we've talked about is great and really important, and I think it all kind of starts with what we kind of started in the beginning, what Milo, I think, and Paul talked about. We have to accept where we are, and we have to accept that maybe right now our priority is health and feeling good. And if you're somebody who loves to shift heavy weights, but you don't have heavy weights to shift right now, that's okay. And I think having some acceptance around that, and accepting that that's the situation, and that right now we can only do what we can do to just maintain our health and to put ourselves in a good position to get after it when lockdown is over, that's really important. So accept where you are, accept that our priorities and our goals may have shifted a little bit from what they were in the gym, and that that's okay. And in the long run, it will probably be a good thing. And that's it.
Yeah, well said. Okay, we're going to end it there, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's roundtable chat. Again, if you like this video, click the like button below, click the subscribe button, share this video if you liked it, and if you've got any questions, put the questions in the comments below, and that'll really help us going forward for any more content that you guys want us to talk about. Okay, thanks Andy, thanks Milo, thanks Mads. See you all soon.
Take care.
Ciao.